My husband called me a youthful mistake at his company gala. 24 hours later, I showed him exactly what kind of mistake I could be. Welcome to Life's Turns. Before we begin, tell us where you're watching from, we love knowing. If you love real emotional stories, hit subscribe, we post one every day. Clara stood in front of the full-length mirror in their penthouse, carefully fastening the small pearl earrings her mother had given her years ago. Her hands shook ever so slightly, though she tried to hide it even from herself. Tonight was the annual gala for the high-powered marketing agency where her husband, Nathan, was a partner. His agency, his triumphs, his night. She, as usual, was merely an accessory. The dark emerald dress she had picked hung elegantly in the closet, sleek, tasteful, understated. Nathan had once said, "It's fine, not too flashy." Clara ran a hand along the smooth silk, feeling its cool texture. The dress was exquisite, expensive, yet utterly forgettable, much like she felt in recent years. "Clara, almost ready. We need to leave in 30, Nathan's voice called from the bathroom, brisk and impatient. "It's a big night. You understand." "Yes, almost done," she replied, pulling the dress over her head and zipping it carefully. A big night for him. Nathan's agency, Apex Media, had just landed a multi-million-dollar contract with a tech giant. 6 months of endless meetings, pitches, and sleepless nights had led to this. Tonight, he would shine, and she would stand silently beside him, smiling politely when necessary, waiting for the inevitable question, "And what do you do?" And she would answer, quietly, "I manage our home. I'm Nathan's wife." 2 decades ago, Clara had dreams of her own. Graduating top of her class from Parsons with a degree in interior design, she envisioned opening a boutique studio, crafting spaces where people could feel truly at home. But then she met Nathan, ambitious, magnetic, and utterly persuasive. He promised to support her talents, to share a life where both their dreams would flourish. For a while, it was true. They rented a modest apartment in Brooklyn, both working tirelessly. Nights were filled with cheap wine and big plans. Nathan would hold her close, whispering, "In 10 years, Clara, you'll run your own studio, and I'll have my own agency." But life, as it does, intervened. Nathan's career accelerated rapidly. Within 5 years, he led a department. 3 years later, he launched Apex Media. Wealth and accolades followed, and Clara's aspirations quietly slipped away. First, Nathan asked her to help with office design, paperwork, organizing meetings. Then, one evening, with a reassuring smile, he suggested, "Why not step back from your work? Focus on yourself, on the home. I want my wife to look the part, polished, poised, effortless." At the time, it sounded caring. Clara agreed. Years passed. Clara maintained the penthouse, curated the aesthetic, prepared meals, attended fitness classes, salons, and social events. She was impeccable. Convenient. Invisible. Nathan emerged from the bathroom, his tailored navy suit immaculate, hair neatly styled, the scent of expensive cologne filling the air. "You're wearing that dress," he said, glancing at her. "Fine. Don't overdo the makeup. And try not to look bored. Important people tonight. I don't want them thinking my wife is, well, dying of boredom." The gala was at one of Manhattan's most exclusive venues. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the sparkling skyline, ambient lighting softened the room, and waiters in crisp whites moved gracefully among the guests. Nathan dove into the crowd, charming, laughing, basking in congratulations. Clara followed, smiling politely when spoken to. "Clara, dear, what do you do?" asked a client's elegant wife. "I manage our home," Clara said. The woman smiled warmly, recounting her own years of domestic bliss. Yet inside, Clara flinched. "Do whatever you want," they said. She hadn't remembered what that felt like in years. At the head table, Nathan commanded the room, telling stories, cracking jokes, entertaining everyone with effortless charisma. The chairman of the company stood, glass raised, extolling Nathan's brilliance. "And none of this would be possible without my incredible partner, Nathan," he said. Applause erupted. Then Nathan turned his gaze to Clara. A mischievous smirk spread across his face. "And let's raise a toast to my wife, my youthful mistake." The ballroom erupted in laughter. Nathan beamed, expecting her to laugh, as she always had. But something inside Clara snapped. A frozen smile, a cold detachment. She raised her glass and sipped deliberately, letting the sharp bubbles clear her mind. For 20 years, she had supported him, forgave him, compromised, and endured, including his infidelities. And now, in front of everyone, he called her a youthful mistake. The dinner continued. Nathan, oblivious, patted her shoulder as if to soothe. Clara nodded, smiling outwardly, while inside, a new clarity emerged. She remembered a conversation from a year ago about returning to design school. Nathan had laughed. "Who would hire you after 20 years off? Focus on your fitness instead." On the balcony later, city lights twinkling below, Clara felt a quiet but unstoppable determination. When did I stop being a person in my own right? When did I accept being seen only as an accessory? The wind tugged at her hair as she made her decision. This wasn't just a night of humiliation. It was the moment she would reclaim herself. Clara hadn't signed up for design classes that year. She went to the gym instead, like she always did. She remembered 6 months ago, suggesting a weekend getaway to the Appalachians, just the two of them, like old times. Nathan had brushed her off. "No time for that now. My project's on fire. Besides, you're not the same girl who could sleep in a tent anymore." Each time she swallowed the insult, she convinced herself it was minor, that family and stability mattered, that all couples went through this. But tonight, the words youthful mistake had been the final blow. She returned to the room. Nathan didn't even notice she had left. Clara sat back at the table, finished her champagne, and felt a strange calm settle over her. The decision was made. She wouldn't make a scene, wouldn't scream, cry, or demand an apology. Nathan would never understand. To him, she really was a mistake, a minor inconvenience in his life. Well, she would show him what kind of mistake she could be. The gala ended past midnight. Nathan, half drunk and fully pleased with himself, chattered non-stop on the drive home. "Did you see how that went? Fantastic. I think this contract could open doors for us in Europe. Maybe even an office in London. Can you imagine, Clara? Are you listening?" "Yes, I'm listening," she replied quietly, staring at the blur of streetlights passing by. "And stop sulking over the toast. It was a joke." Everyone laughed. "You've completely lost your sense of humor." Clara remained silent. "Sense of humor? No, Nathan. I haven't lost it. You just stopped being funny years ago." At home, he stumbled into the bedroom, collapsed onto the king-sized bed fully dressed, and was snoring within minutes. Clara stood in the doorway, looking at the man she had spent 20 years with. No love, no hatred, not even hurt. Just emptiness. She moved to the kitchen, boiled water, grabbed her favorite mug, a blue porcelain one with forget-me-not flowers, a gift from her mother, and sat down. The condo was silent, save for the ticking wall clock and the gentle hum of the kettle. She began to plan. Clara cradled the steaming cup of chamomile tea. The wall clock read 1:30 a.m. Nathan's steady snore came from the bedroom. Normally, she would have gone to bed, swallowed her resentment, and convinced herself that tomorrow would be better. Not tonight. Tonight clarity had descended on her, sharp and cold. The words youthful mistake echoed in her head but no longer hurt, they ignited action. She opened her laptop. First, the joint account. Nathan loved controlling the finances, giving her a debit card with a low limit, scrutinizing every expense. But not all the money in that account was his. Years ago, Clara had inherited funds from her grandmother. She had invested nearly $100,000 into their home's down payment, money Nathan assumed was simply part of their shared fortune. Clara scoffed at how blind she had been. Opening a bank where she had secretly created her own account weeks earlier, she began transferring funds. Not all at once, that would trigger alerts. Methodically, calmly, she moved sums from the joint account to her own. $3,000, then $2,000, then $4,000. Within an hour, nearly $90,000 had shifted under Nathan's nose. Legal. Transparent. Her lifeline. Next, the study. Nathan's massive mahogany desk, his leather chair, rows of untouched business books, just decoration. A safe built into the wall waited. She knew the combination, their wedding date. The safe clicked open. Cash, contracts, securities, she packed them all into a manila envelope. At the bottom, a velvet box with gold cufflinks, a relic from Nathan's father. She took them too. Documents and files followed. The condo's purchase agreement revealed the appendix: her grandmother's money had gone toward the down payment. Marriage certificate, passport, statements, evidence of infidelity. Proof, leverage, and freedom, all documented. Finally, the past. Photographs of college days, their tiny wedding, the first apartment. When had love become contempt? She couldn't pinpoint it. Slowly, subtly, Nathan's success had risen while she remained tethered, invisible, tolerated. She closed the photo folder. The past had died tonight along with his toast. By 3 a.m., she returned to the kitchen and booked her flight. Milan. Italy had always been a dream, postponed indefinitely. A direct morning flight, one seat, business class. Paid for with Nathan's card. Then a small apartment downtown, near the Duomo. Paid. Reservations, tickets, her future, settled. She packed lightly, essentials, a few changes of clothes, documents, her laptop, chargers, the pearl earrings she had worn tonight, and a single photograph of her mother. Freedom, not possessions, mattered. The clock read 3:30 a.m. Clara took one last sip of tea, smiled faintly at the quiet condo, and whispered to herself, "It's time." Clara planned her cab for 6 a.m. The ride to John F. Kennedy Airport would take 40 minutes. She poured herself another cup of tea, hands steady, mind sharp. Tonight, an entire life had begun to crumble, yet she felt no pain, only a strange lightness. She thought back over the past 3 years, Nathan staying late more often, no longer asking about her day, forgetting her birthday entirely last year. When she timidly mentioned it, he shrugged. "I was swamped. We'll celebrate this weekend." They never did. 6 months ago, she'd battled a high fever from the flu. Nathan was away on a business trip, never calling once. Clara made broth for herself, took her medicine alone. When he returned, he casually asked, "So, all better?" and moved on with his life. Once, he had cared. When she had strep throat in college, he had stayed by her dorm bed for days, making tea, fetching medicine. Back then, she had mattered. She wasn't a mistake. But that Nathan was gone, or maybe he had always been hiding behind the mask of a smitten student. It didn't matter anymore. The past couldn't be changed. Only the future could. Clara rose and walked through their Manhattan condo, past expensive furniture she had never chosen, past modern artwork she loathed, past a kitchen she barely used because Nathan always preferred takeout. The bedroom, a massive bed where they had slept like strangers, felt more like a display than a home. This wasn't her life, it was a gilded cage. In the bathroom, she looked at herself in the mirror. Tired, but resolute. From her makeup bag, she pulled a tube of bright red lipstick, bought a year ago but never worn. Nathan had scoffed, "Are you hitting the streets? Wear something decent." Clara applied it, bold and defiant, then smiled at her reflection. She turned to the wall mirror and scrawled, "Mistake corrected." A simple, perfect message. Checking the time, 5 a.m., she called a ride-share to the airport. While waiting, she gathered the last essentials: the keys to Nathan's silver sedan, documents from the safe, cash, laptop, phone, chargers. Everything necessary was with her. She paused at the bedroom door, looking at Nathan sleeping, utterly unaware of the storm about to descend on him. "Goodbye, Nathan," she whispered. "Thanks for the lesson. I finally learned what no woman should tolerate." She removed her wedding ring, gold, with a small diamond, and placed it on the hallway chest beside the apartment keys. The ride arrived. She pulled her suitcase and bag into the car, avoiding the elevator to remain silent. The driver, quiet and respectful, asked only, "You leaving for long?" "Forever," Clara replied. The driver nodded, no further questions. The city slept as the cab glided through empty streets. Atlanta faded behind her. She felt lighter with every mile. At JFK, she paid the driver, retrieved her suitcase, and moved through the terminal. Few travelers were around, the quiet was comforting. Check-in complete. Business class, Milan, boarding in 90 minutes. Carry-on only. Seated by the window, she sipped champagne. The sun rose, painting the sky golden. She glanced at her phone. Nathan would still be asleep. Soon, he would awaken to an empty condo, a lipstick message on the mirror, missing cash, vanished documents. She blocked his number. Connection severed. The plane soared above the city. Clara watched Manhattan shrink below, streets and skyscrapers growing smaller and smaller. "Goodbye, old life," she whispered. "Hello, new one." For the first time in years, she felt truly free. Meanwhile, Nathan awoke hours later. His head throbbed from champagne, whiskey, and cognac. He opened one eye, groaned, glanced at the clock, 11:45 a.m., and rolled onto his back. The bed was empty on Clara's side. He staggered into the bathroom, splashed water on his face, and froze. Written in fresh red lipstick were the words, "Mistake corrected." "Clara," he shouted, panic rising. Silence answered. He ran through the condo, empty kitchen, no coffee brewing, her mug gone. The bedroom, closets, cabinets, everything was gone. The safe, too. His hands trembled as he fumbled the code, finally opening it to find it empty. Nathan stood frozen, heart pounding. The realization hit, she had left, and this time, it wasn't a joke. Click. The safe swung open. Empty. Every last bill gone. The documents, the contracts, even Nathan's father's gold cufflinks, gone. Nathan stood frozen, staring at the void inside the safe. Impossible. How could Clara know the code? He grabbed his phone and called his friend and partner, Julian. "Hey, Nathan. Rough morning." Julian's voice was groggy. "Did you see Clara last night after the gala? Did she come home with us?" Nathan asked, voice tight. "Clara? Of course. You were both in the cab around 2 a.m. You barely remembered anything." Nathan hung up, heart racing. She had come home with him. She had been there. Then, what had she done? He dashed to the living room and booted up his laptop, fingers drumming nervously. The screen flickered, loaded, then opened. He logged into the joint account. Balance, $12,347. His eyes went wide. Over $200,000 had been there the night before. Trembling, he opened the transaction history. Transfers: $3,000 at 1:47 a.m., $2,000 at 1:52 a.m., $4,000 at 2:03 a.m. And dozens more, each move sending money to an account in Clara V. Hamilton's name. Then the airline charge, $1,200 for a business class ticket. The Milan apartment, $2,200. She had taken everything and vanished. No, no, Nathan whispered. The numbers blurred, the letters spun. He called Clara repeatedly. Voicemail. Voicemail. Automated message. Nothing. He dialed the bank. My wife transferred $200,000 illegally, he roared. Sir, a woman replied calmly, the transfers were legal. Clara Hamilton had full access to the joint account. Transactions are completed. Nathan slammed the phone down. Court. Legal. She had taken all his power, all his control, and he could do nothing. Desperate, he called friends. No one had seen her. He called family. Panic rose with each unanswered question. When he reached his mother-in-law, Vivian Lewis, her voice was icy. She left. 20 years of tolerating disrespect ended. That's all you need to know. Goodbye, Nathan. Click. Disrespect. He had provided everything, Manhattan condo, money, comfort. And yet she had taken it all. Rage, confusion, helplessness, tears streamed down his face. Nathan grabbed a whiskey bottle from the bar, drank, poured, drank again. His head throbbed. Nothing worked. He returned to the bedroom, rifled through drawers. Beneath t-shirts, an old shoebox. Photographs. College days, Clara in a sweater and jeans, laughing. Their wedding, small, intimate, Clara radiant, eyes full of love. First apartment, boxes on the floor, champagne from plastic cups, giggles, endless plans. Children, careers, dreams. When had it all ended? When had he stopped being the center of her world? Or had she stopped being part of his? Nathan flipped through the photos, memories flooding back, late nights helping him prep presentations, supporting him when Apex Media was just an idea. She had been everything once. And now, nothing remained. Clara had believed in Nathan when he barely believed in himself. And what had he given her in return? Money, a Manhattan condo, a silver sedan, trips abroad, but never attention, never respect, never true care. When had he last asked about her thoughts, her feelings, her dreams? Nathan remembered her suggesting a trip to the Appalachians 6 months ago. He refused. Work was more important. A year ago, she wanted to return to her career. He dismissed it, mocked it. Her countless gestures, cooking his favorite meals, greeting him with a smile, supporting him silently, met only scorn. And then, in front of everyone at a gala, he had called her a mistake. A joke. A laugh. Clara. Nathan closed the old shoebox, put it back, and moved to the window. Outside, Manhattan hummed with an ordinary Saturday, oblivious to his life shattering. He realized it wasn't Clara who had erred, it was him. He had taken her for granted, decided she had nowhere else to go, that she would stay because it was convenient. But she had left. She had taken more than money, she had taken 20 years of his life and shown him the emptiness he had become. Nathan perched on the windowsill, feeling a loneliness he hadn't known in decades. Could he ever recover what he had lost? Could he get back someone who had given him everything while receiving only contempt in return? Meanwhile, Clara stood by the window of her apartment in Milan, cradling a mug of cappuccino. The glass-framed narrow streets lined with terracotta rooftops. In the distance, the spires of the Duomo in Milan caught the morning sun. For the first time in years, she breathed freely. A week had passed since her arrival. The first days she wandered aimlessly through cobbled streets, paused in cafes, lingered on benches watching life unfold around her. The reality sank in, this wasn't a dream. She was here, thousands of miles from her old life. Her phone had buzzed incessantly with Nathan calling from various numbers. She didn't answer. She blocked them one by one. Messages flooded in, ignored. Clara, call me. We must talk. You had no right. Return the money. Clara deleted every messaging app except email, keeping only one channel for emergencies. Nathan hadn't yet written there. She sipped her cappuccino, enjoying the rich, bitter notes, stronger than she remembered. Yesterday, she had discovered a tiny cafe down her street. The air smelled of fresh baking. A woman, in her 50s, stout, with gray hair tied loosely and warm brown eyes, greeted her. Buongiorno, the woman said with a wide smile. Buongiorno, Clara replied cautiously. Cappuccino, please. The woman nodded, crafting the drink. Moments later, a steaming cup and a croissant appeared. I didn't order this, Clara said in English. Gift, the woman said, sliding into a chair. You're new here? Yes. Just arrived. I'm Julia. This is my cafe. Been here 20 years. I'm Clara. I just started over, Clara admitted. Julia's gaze softened. Capisco. I started over once too. Left my husband, took my daughter, one suitcase, no money. Worked as a waitress, dishwasher. 5 years later, I opened this cafe. My daughter has her life in Rome now. And I'm happy. Clara froze. The hardest part, Julia continued, is believing you deserve happiness. My husband convinced me I was worthless. I almost believed him. But it's better to fall apart than live with someone who doesn't value you. Clara felt a lump rise in her throat. Thank you, she whispered. Come back anytime. While you settle, you'll be my guest. We women help each other, Julia said, patting her hand. From that day, Clara visited the cafe every morning. Julia taught her Italian phrases, shared tips for groceries, restaurants, and language courses. A week after arriving, Clara enrolled in an intensive Italian course, 3 hours daily. Her classmates were a diverse mix, a Brazilian programmer, a young Japanese woman, an older German couple, all starting fresh, all quietly determined. During class, the instructor Luca asked each student about their work. The Brazilian spoke, the Japanese woman spoke. Clara hesitated. I'm an interior designer, she said tentatively. Luca nodded. Milan has many opportunities for designers. After class, the Japanese student approached her. I'm Yuki. Clara, she replied. You really design interiors? Yuki asked. I did, long ago. It's been a while, Clara admitted. There's a studio looking for an assistant. Want to try? Clara hesitated. Who would hire her after 20 years? But Julia's words echoed, the hardest part is believing you deserve happiness. Okay, Clara said. Give me the contact. Yuki handed her the card. Clara dialed the next day. A warm female voice answered, Alessandra. Yes, we need an assistant. Interview tomorrow, 2 p.m. We speak English, don't worry. Clara arrived punctually. The studio smelled of paint and wood. Sketches hung on the walls, fabric, tiles, and wallpaper samples filled the corners. Alessandra, energetic and sharp with bright lipstick, asked her story. Clara summarized her degree, brief past experience, and long hiatus. Why the break? Family, she answered. But now I'm ready. Alessandra handed her a client folder. Redesign this bedroom. What would you suggest? Clara studied it. Light tones, mirrors to reflect light, minimal furniture, natural textiles, plants. Ideas flowed like a river released after years of damming. Alessandra tested her flexibility, dark accent wall. Clara balanced contrast and light, suggested layered lighting, floor lamps, sconces, LED strips. Alessandra smiled. You haven't worked long, yet your sense of space is excellent. When can you start? Clara blinked. You're hiring me? Yes. Small studio, not much pay, but meaningful work. Can you do it? Yes, Clara breathed. Independent work. Her own effort. No Nathan. No money from him. She left the studio, chest light, heart brimming. Her first day began 3 days later at 9 a.m. Alessandra introduced her to Marco, the 3D rendering specialist, and immersed her in projects. Clients, sketches, materials, she was alive in her work, remembered what it felt like to be useful. Her first assignment, a newly divorced woman's apartment. I want nothing to remind me of the past. Everything fresh, new, mine, the client said. Clara understood immediately. Light tones, bright accents, living flowers. When the renovation finished, the client wept. This is exactly what I needed, she whispered, hugging Clara. Thank you. You didn't just design a room, you created a home. You helped me see that I could start over. Clara Hamilton returned home that evening with a sense that her life was finally her own. Days melted into weeks. She worked at the design studio, studied Italian, and wandered through Milan at dusk, discovering tiny squares where street musicians played, antique shops brimming with hidden treasures, and quiet parks where she could sit with a book. One Saturday, she was at Parco Sempione, slowly reading an Italian text with the help of a dictionary. A man in his 50s, glasses perched on his nose, gray hair, a warm face, settled on the bench beside her. He opened a book of his own, but after a few moments, he noticed hers and smiled. Dante, he said. Brave choice. Clara blushed. Trying. It's difficult. Dante's tricky even for Italians. Are you new to Milan? 6 months in. They started chatting. He introduced himself as Marco, an art history professor at a local university. He spoke passionately about Milan's hidden corners, a secret vineyard in the city center, the Paul Petali House Museum, quiet treasures that tourists rarely saw. Clara listened, smiling, charmed by the easy flow of conversation. No pressure, no pretense, just shared delight. They agreed to explore the city together, casually. Clara didn't see it as romance, just companionship, friendship. That was enough. Meanwhile, Nathan could not let go. 6 months after Clara left, an email appeared. She stared at it for a long moment before opening it. Clara, I realize now how wrong I was. Please forgive me. I didn't appreciate you. I want to fix everything. I will change. I need you. Give me a chance. Clara read it twice and closed her laptop. Once, those words would have pulled her back like a lifeline. But now she knew the truth, people rarely change. Nathan didn't miss her, he missed the comfort, the routine, the home she'd provided. She composed a short reply. Nathan, you once called me a youthful mistake. I agree. The mistake was tolerating disrespect for 20 years. The mistake was surrendering my life for you. The mistake was thinking love means one gives and the other takes. Thank you for teaching me. I finally learned. Don't contact me again. I will live my life. She pressed send. A weight lifted from her soul. 3 months later, Clara's new life in Milan had settled into rhythm. Her work brought joy. Italian was becoming familiar. Friends surrounded her, Julia at the cafe, Yuki from classes, Alessandra and Marco from the studio, and Professor Marco, who accompanied her on weekend museum visits, wine tastings, and long walks through the city. One crisp autumn evening, she sat in a piazza with Marco, sipping coffee. Leaves rustled around their feet. "Clara, may I ask something personal?" he said. "Of course." "Am I happy?" she asked herself before answering. She reflected. No husband, no past life, no 20-year routine, but work she loved, friends who cared, and freedom she had earned. "Yes," she said. "I am happy. For the first time in years." Marco smiled. "It shows. When we met, you were like a closed book. Now you've blossomed." She watched the people strolling past, laughing, living. And she belonged here, not as Nathan's wife, not as a shadow, not a youthful mistake. Just Clara Hamilton, designer, creator, woman who chose her life. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She considered, then declined and blocked it. The past was over. The future belonged to her. "You know, Marco," she said, resuming their conversation, "I realized something. Self-respect outweighs comfort. It's never too late to start truly living. And no one else defines your worth, you must." Marco nodded. "Wise words. And you're proof it works." They lingered, finishing coffee, then walked through the evening streets. Clara felt whole, self-sufficient, alive. Somewhere, Nathan was still grappling with his loss. But that was no longer her concern. Her focus was living fully, valuing the people around her, building a future of her own making. She paused on a bridge, watching the reflection of city lights shimmer across the water. The wind tousled her hair. Music floated from somewhere unseen. Clara smiled. For the first time in decades, the future was hers, and hers alone. She was convenient. Nathan walked into the bedroom, fastening the cuffs of his crisp white shirt. He looked impeccable. The custom-tailored suit hugged his lean, muscular frame perfectly. His hair was neatly styled, and the faint aroma of his expensive cologne lingered in the air. At 45, he carried the self-assured swagger of a man accustomed to success. "Oh, that dress," he muttered, glancing at Clara. "Fine, fine. Just don't overdo the makeup, and try not to look bored tonight. Important people will be there. I don't want them thinking my wife is dying of boredom at the gala." Clara swallowed and nodded. Remarks like that used to wound her. Now, they simply slid past, like static on a radio. The restaurant hosting the gala was one of Manhattan's most exclusive, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the skyline, soft ambient lighting, waiters in crisp uniforms, tables set with exacting precision. Around 30 guests had gathered, agency staff, their partners, clients, dressed to the nines, champagne glasses in hand, chatting animatedly. Nathan dove into the crowd immediately, shaking hands, laughing, and basking in praise. Clara stayed close, smiling when required, answering polite inquiries. A client's wife, a stately woman in her late 50s, leaned in. "Clara, dear, what do you do? Are you in media too?" "No, I'm a homemaker," Clara said quietly. "Oh, how lovely. Time for your home, perhaps a garden." "I haven't worked for years, and honestly, it's freeing not to be tied to a schedule." "You can do whatever you want." Clara nodded, but inside, she flinched. Do whatever you want. She had forgotten what it felt like to follow her own desires instead of Nathan's. At the head table, Nathan was in his element, telling stories, cracking jokes, recounting difficult clients. Laughter rippled through the room. Clara sipped champagne, smiling at the appropriate moments. The director of the parent company, a silver-haired man with a booming voice, rose. Friends, tonight we celebrate not just a major deal, but a breakthrough for Apex Media. And it's thanks to the talent, persistence, and charm of our Nathan. Let's raise a glass. Applause. Nathan stood, feigning modesty, eyes gleaming. Thank you, friends. Success is always a team effort. Without you, none of this would have happened. He paused, scanning the room, then locked eyes with Clara. A smirk flickered. And I want to raise a special toast, to my wife, my youthful mistake. The room erupted in laughter. Colleagues clapped. Nathan beamed, proud of his joke. He looked at Clara, expecting the practiced laugh she always gave. But this time, something inside her didn't break, it shattered. A youthful mistake. 20 years of marriage, 20 years of giving up her dreams, enduring his affairs, tolerating diminishing respect. And now this. Clara lifted her glass, smiling superficially. No one noticed the frost behind her eyes. She drained the champagne in one swallow, the sting sobering her completely. Dinner continued. Nathan reveled in attention, occasionally patting her shoulder. She nodded, smiled. Inside, a strange detachment was growing. A young employee leaned in. Don't mind him. Men sometimes say things without thinking. My guy does the same. Clara looked at her. Young, full of promise. And she saw herself, 20 years ago, naive, in love, willing to sacrifice everything. She felt a sharp pity for that woman. The night dragged. Mechanically, she ate, drank, answered questions. Eventually, Nathan became engrossed in a discussion, and Clara slipped onto the balcony. The city lights sparkled below. When did I stop being a person to him? When did I become just part of his success? When did I let him treat me this way? She remembered, the design classes she had wanted to take a year ago, dismissed with his laughter. The weekend trip to the Appalachians, brushed aside for his project. Each compromise, each swallowed insult, each small sacrifice had accumulated until now. She returned to the table. Nathan didn't notice. She finished her champagne, feeling a strange calm. The decision was final. No scene, no screams, no apologies demanded. He wouldn't change. He never understood the harm. He only missed convenience. The gala ended past midnight. Nathan, drunk and satisfied, chattered about European expansions. Can you imagine, Clara? Are you listening? Yes, I'm listening, she said quietly, eyes fixed on the passing lights. Sense of humor. You've lost that a long time ago. At home, he collapsed onto the bed, snoring within minutes. Clara lingered in the doorway, then moved to the kitchen. She boiled water, picked her favorite blue forget-me-not mug, and sat alone at the table. The condo was silent, the wall clock ticking, kettle humming. She opened her laptop. Their joint account showed a six-figure balance. Nathan controlled the finances, scrutinized her spending monthly, while she justified herself every time. But what he didn't know, part of that money wasn't his. Her grandmother's inheritance, from a small South Carolina home sold 3 years earlier, had been deposited in that account, nearly $100,000 for the condo's down payment, which Nathan had conveniently titled only in his name. Clara laughed softly, bitterly. How blind I was. How many years did I let him manage my money, my time, my life? Tonight, everything was clear. She was no one's accessory. No one's convenience. No one's mistake. Clara opened a new browser tab and logged into the bank where, a month ago, on a whim, she had opened her own account. Back then, it had been a small, almost imperceptible step toward independence. Now, it felt like a lifeline. She double-checked the routing and account numbers, then returned to the joint account and began transferring funds, carefully, methodically, in chunks that wouldn't trigger an alert. 3,000 first. Confirmed. 2,000. Then 4. Transfer by transfer, calm and steady. Within an hour, nearly $90,000 had moved into her account. Nathan would notice in the morning, undoubtedly panic and storm to the bank, but everything was above board. No fraud. No crime. Just Clara reclaiming what was hers. She closed the laptop, finished her now cold tea, and walked to what Nathan called his study. The mahogany desk, leather chair, and rows of unread marketing books loomed before her. A safe was embedded in the wall. She knew the combination. Arrogant, predictable Nathan had left it as their wedding date, June 15th. The safe clicked open. Inside, stacks of cash, neatly bundled. She counted quickly, 5,000 in hundreds. She took it all. Documents, contracts, and securities followed, stuffed into a manila envelope. At the bottom lay a velvet box. Gold cufflinks, a gift from Nathan's late father. He never wore them, yet had treasured them. Clara paused, then slipped them into her collection. Let him feel loss for once. She closed the safe and left the study. Next, the paperwork. In the living room cabinet, she sorted through files, marriage certificate, her passport, condo documents. The purchase agreement confirmed the condo was titled solely to Nathan, but a key appendix showed the initial down payment had come from her grandmother's money. Photos and scans were taken. 3 years of bank statements revealed the transfers to an unknown account, proof of his 18-month affair. Photographs of their youth, their wedding, their first apartment. When did it shift? Slowly, imperceptibly, as Nathan's successes grew and she remained still. She closed the folders. The past had died tonight. The clock read 3 a.m. Nathan was still asleep. Clara reopened her laptop. She booked a flight, Milan. A direct morning flight, business class, paid with Nathan's card. 1 month's rent for a cozy flat near the Duomo, also charged to him. Packing was simple, a small carry-on, only essentials, clothes, makeup, passport, condo papers, bank statements, phone, laptop, chargers, and her mother's pearl earrings. A single photograph of her mother was the only sentimental keepsake. Clothes could be replaced, freedom could not. By 3:30 a.m., the packing was complete. She called the ride for 6 a.m. and poured herself another cup of tea. Her hands were steady, her mind clear. In one night, an entire life was collapsing, and she felt lighter than ever. She remembered the past 3 years, Nathan coming home later and later, forgetting birthdays, ignoring illness. She remembered the contrast. In college, he had cared, stayed by her side through fevers, read to her, made tea. That Nathan was gone. Or perhaps he had never been anything more than a convenient partner. It didn't matter anymore. Only the future mattered. She moved through the condo, pausing at each room, the living room filled with furniture she had never chosen, the kitchen she barely used, the bedroom where they had slept as strangers. This wasn't her home. It had never been hers. In the bathroom, Clara looked in the mirror. Tired, yes, but determined. She applied a bright red lipstick, long forbidden, and smiled at her reflection. Defiant. There. Much better. She returned to the kitchen. 5 a.m. ride arrived in 15 minutes. She collected the last items, keys to Nathan's silver sedan, the documents, cash, laptop, phone, chargers. One final sweep through the condo. Nathan slept on, oblivious. Clara slipped off her wedding ring, placing it next to the apartment keys. She picked up her suitcase and bag, opened the door, and stepped into the pre-dawn light. The sky was beginning to brighten. A new day. A new life. The ride was waiting. The driver, a middle-aged man, stepped out to help with her suitcase. Clara handed it over, breathed in the crisp morning air, and smiled. Freedom had finally arrived. "Airport, right?" the driver asked. "Yes," Clara Hamilton replied, settling into the back seat. The silver sedan glided over empty Manhattan streets. Streetlights cast soft pools of light on scattered cars. From the fourth floor of their building, her old life slept, unaware. Clara looked back once, then focused on the road ahead. Each passing block made her feel lighter, freer. The driver was quiet, which she appreciated. Finally, he asked, "You leaving for long?" Clara hesitated, then said, "Forever." "I hear you," he said, nodding once, then fell silent. By 6 a.m., they arrived at JFK Airport. Sparse crowds of early travelers moved around, some sipping coffee, some checking screens. Clara paid, grabbed her suitcase, and walked into the terminal. She approached the check-in counter, handed over her passport and ticket. "Business class to Milan," the agent said with a smile. "Boarding in 90 minutes. Any bags?" "No, just carry on," Clara replied. The boarding pass slid into her hand. Security was smooth. She found a window seat and sat, watching the city awaken. Sunrise painted the horizon golden. Clara's phone read 6:30 a.m. Nathan was still asleep. In a few hours, he would discover the empty safe, the vanished cash, the drained account. She smirked. She blocked his number, severing the final tie. When boarding was called at 7:30, she took one last glance at Manhattan. Life carried on for millions, but for Clara, this was a fresh beginning. Champagne in hand, she watched the plane rise, leaving the city smaller and smaller below. Goodbye, old life. Hello, new one, she thought, closing her eyes. For the first time in years, she felt truly free. Meanwhile, Nathan awoke with a brutal hangover. His head pounded, mouth dry, memory fuzzy. He cracked one eye open. 11:45 a.m. He'd overslept. Saturday. No problem. He had a weekend to recover. He rolled over, glanced at the other side of the bed, empty. Clara should have been there. He staggered to the bathroom, splashed water on his face, stared at his reflection. Bloodshot eyes, stubble, rough. He froze. On the mirror, written in red lipstick, "Mistake corrected." "What the hell," he muttered. "Clara," he called down the hall. Silence. He paced the condo, checking the kitchen, empty. Her mug sat untouched. The living room, empty. The bedroom, her side untouched. Her wedding ring rested on the chest beside the apartment keys. Panic began to creep in. Nathan grabbed his phone, dialing her number. Voicemail. Again. And again. Backup numbers. Nothing. He ran around, desperate, opening closets. Her clothes were there. Her suitcase. Gone. Documents, gone. Marriage certificate, passport, condo papers, all vanished. The safe. He stumbled to the study, fumbling with the combination. Click. Empty. Cash gone. Documents gone. Even his father's gold cufflinks, gone. How, he whispered, shaking. He called Julian, his friend and partner. "Julian, have you seen Clara?" She left last night." "She left with me," Julian said groggily. "We took a cab around 2 a.m. She was quiet, next to you. That's all I remember." Nathan hung up. He tried calling others. No one knew. His mother answered. "Mom, she left. Took everything. Did I hurt her?" Son, people don't vanish like that without reason. Something happened. Think, Nathan. Did you argue? No, everything was fine. Party went great. Everything perfect. And yet, Nathan felt the world collapse around him. Clara Hamilton had vanished, along with every last trace of the life he had taken for granted. All right, calm down, Nathan muttered, slamming his phone down. Maybe she just needed space. Call her in a couple of days, talk it out. Space. $200,000 gone, Milan. That wasn't space. He sank onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. The hangover mingled with shock, making his head pound unbearably. The phone rang again. Nathan grabbed it. Maybe it was Clara. No, Julian. Hey, Nathan. How's the head after last night? Julian's cheerful voice grated on his nerves. Fine, Nathan snapped. You were on fire yesterday, though. That toast about the youthful mistake. Everyone loved it. Thought about it later, Clara didn't look upset, at least not in front of anyone. The words hit Nathan like ice. The toast. A youthful mistake. His mind raced. The joke, the applause, the laughter. And Clara, gone. Julian, I'm busy, he barked, hanging up. It all clicked, the mirror, the lipstick, the mistake corrected. Nathan staggered to the laptop. Social media. Clara's profile. Sunset photo, a week old. He typed a desperate message, call me immediately. We need to talk. Sent. He knew she wouldn't read it. He opened a search engine. How to find someone abroad. Links to detective agencies, international tracing services, legal consultations. He dialed the first number, Sphinx Detective Agency. I need to locate a person. My wife. She went to Milan. International tracing starts at $3,000, 50% deposit, the agent said. Nathan froze. $3,000. She'd taken everything. I can't. Unfortunately, we can't help you, the agent added, and hung up. Helplessness engulfed him. She had taken everything, money, documents, even the car. He bolted to the hallway, no keys. The silver sedan remained, but the keys, registration, all gone. Back in the condo, he rifled through drawers, cabinets, desperate for a spare key, but it was gone. He collapsed onto the couch. Empty. Everything gone. The phone rang again. Julian. Why did you hang up? Julian asked. Maybe she went to her mother. Nathan clutched at the thought. Give me her mother's number. He scrolled through contacts. Vivian Lewis. Dialed. Rings, then her voice, cool and sharp. Nathan. Is Clara there? No. Why? She left, Vivian said, icy. 20 years of tolerance ran out. Goodbye, Nathan. Click. Disrespect. What disrespect? He'd provided everything. And yet, tears streamed down his face, tears of rage, of helplessness. The law was on her side. The account was joint. He poured whiskey, one shot, then another, trying to calm the storm inside. His mind swirled with memories, late nights helping him with presentations, supporting him when he doubted himself, all the love he had taken for granted. And yet he had called her a mistake, publicly, for a laugh. Nathan opened the bottom drawer of the chest. A shoebox filled with old photographs. Their youth, their wedding, their first apartment. Smiles, laughter, love. How had it ended? When did he stop seeing her as the center of his world? Clara, meanwhile, stood by the window of her Milan apartment, a cappuccino in hand. Terracotta rooftops, narrow cobblestone streets, and the spires of the Duomo in the distance. Sunlight warmed the room. A week had passed. At first, she wandered the streets aimlessly, absorbing the reality that this was not a dream. Her phone had been flooded with calls, messages, and notifications, all blocked. Email remained, just in case, but Nathan hadn't written. Yesterday, she had visited a small cafe on the corner of her street. Warm, fragrant, filled with the smell of fresh pastries. The woman behind the counter, in her 50s, gray hair in a loose bun, smiled kindly. Buongiorno, the woman said. Buongiorno, Clara replied cautiously. Cappuccino, per favor. Clara tried. The woman nodded, brought a cappuccino and a croissant. A gift. New here? Yes, starting over, Clara admitted. The woman studied her for a moment. Ah, capisco. I started over once too, 20 years ago. I ran away from a man who saw me as property. Clara sipped the coffee. The warmth, the aroma, the sunlight, it felt like the first breath she had taken in years. She was free. I took my daughter and left Sicily for Milan. No money, no job, just a single suitcase. Clara Hamilton froze, mug in hand, staring at the crowded cafe. And how did you manage? She asked. In many ways, Julia replied. First I waited tables, then washed dishes. I saved, learned to cook. 5 years later, I opened this cafe. Small, but mine. My daughter grew up, has her own life in Rome, and I'm happy here. Clara felt a lump in her throat. Julia's eyes had read her story. Thank you, she whispered. For what? Julia asked. For sharing that. I needed to hear it. Julia patted her hand. Come back anytime. You'll always have a place here while you settle. We women help each other. From that day on, Clara visited Julia's cafe every morning. Julia taught her Italian phrases, recommended shops, and suggested courses. A week after arriving, Clara stood by her apartment window, feeling her life beginning to take shape. She enrolled in an intensive Italian course, 3 hours every day. Her classmates were other foreigners, a Brazilian programmer, a Japanese art student, a retired German couple. Everyone was rebuilding, no questions asked. During one lesson, the young Italian instructor, Luca, asked about their professions. I'm a programmer, the Brazilian said. I study art, the Japanese woman said. When it was Clara's turn, she hesitated. I'm an interior designer, she admitted. Luca nodded. Milan needs designers. Plenty of opportunities. After class, the Japanese woman approached her. I'm Yuki, she said. You really are a designer? I was, Clara said. It's been a long time. Want to get back into it? I know a small studio looking for an assistant. Clara hesitated, memories of 20 lost years crowding her mind. But she remembered Julia's words, the hardest part is believing you have the right to happiness. Okay, she said. Give me the contact. Yuki wrote it down. Clara stared at the business card for hours, then finally dialed. A pleasant voice answered. Alessandra speaking. Yes, we're looking for an assistant. Come tomorrow at 2 o'clock. The studio was in an old building, high ceilings, huge windows, the smell of paint and wood. Sketches lined the walls, fabrics and tiles in the corner. Alessandra, energetic and stylish, seated Clara. Tell me about yourself, she requested. Clara shared a brief history, degree, past experience, 20-year gap. Why the break? Alessandra asked. Family, Clara said. But now I'm ready. Alessandra handed her a client project. Clara studied the sketches, the north-facing windows, the small space, and ideas poured in. Light tones, she said. White, beige, soft pastels. A large mirror to reflect the light. Minimal furniture. Natural textiles. And living plants. Alessandra nodded. Good. If the client prefers dark colors. One accent wall, Clara suggested. Deep blue or emerald green. Keep the rest light. Plenty of light fixtures. Alessandra smiled. You haven't worked in years, and yet. You're hiring me. Clara blinked. Yes. Small studio. Interesting projects. Does that work? Yes, Clara breathed. Absolutely. Her first day was 3 days later. She met Alessandra, Marco, 3D rendering, and dived into projects, designing apartments for clients seeking fresh starts. Her work brought her joy, purpose, and independence. Evenings were for exploring Milan. Antique shops, quiet squares, parks with books. One Saturday, she sat in Parco Sempione, slowly reading an Italian book. A man in his 50s, glasses, graying hair, friendly face, joined her. You're reading Dante, he said. Trying to, she blushed. Dante is tough, even for Italians. Are you new to Milan? 6 months in, and she had made friends, Giulia, Yuki, Alessandra, Marco, and Professor Marco, an art historian who guided her through museums and hidden gems. They walked the city together, shared coffee, wine, and conversation. Clara felt she was finally part of the life she had built. Nathan, meanwhile, had not stopped trying to reach her. 6 months after she left, an email arrived. Clara, I was wrong. Please forgive me. I didn't appreciate you. I want to fix everything. Give me a chance. Clara read it twice, then closed it. Once, these words might have mattered. But now she understood, he hadn't missed her, he'd missed convenience, comfort, stability. She replied once. Nathan, you called me a youthful mistake. The real mistake was tolerating disrespect for 20 years, giving up on myself, and believing that love means giving while the other only takes. Thank you for the lesson. Don't write again. I will live my life. 3 more months passed. Clara's days were full: work, Italian lessons, walking Milan, friendships. Autumn arrived. One evening, she sipped coffee with Professor Marco in a piazza. Are you happy? He asked. She paused, then nodded. Yes. For the first time in years. Marco smiled. It shows. You've blossomed. Clara blocked an unknown number on her phone. The past was gone. She belonged to her life now. Self-respect is more important than comfort, she said. It's never too late to live. And no one can define your worth but you. Marco nodded. They walked through evening Milan, the lights reflecting on the water. Clara smiled. The city was hers. She was whole, independent, and free.